labor reforms for the gig workers. So, first thing, what is gig? Right? What is gig economy? What is platform economy? Right? We need to understand that. Something you can see on the screen. Right? Something which has been pointed out again and again. And these kind of statements you come across in multiple places. The gig economy and the platform economy is a relatively new emerging sector with immense potential for growth and employment generation. Very general kind of statement, but it is many places you come across this. The gig economy and platform economy, they have immense potential. They're going to create more jobs. They will help in economic growth, etc. And the Economic Survey 2021 also pointed out the same thing. Now, I want to understand both these terms, the gig economy and platform economy. So, what do you mean by gig economy? What do you mean by platform economy? Let's first understand gig economy. Let's first understand the term gig. I'll give you an example. Some of you might have been to, let's say, a restaurant, right? Many of the restaurants, they will have some live band performing. And again, these bands keep on changing, right? Maybe this Tuesday a particular band was there. Next Tuesday another band will be there. And again, not necessarily the band that performed this time will anytime be performing in the same restaurant, right? Not necessarily. But once they have performed in that particular restaurant, right? Maybe till 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, they have to perform, and after that they'll go back. It might be a band, it might be just one singer doing that. So what happens after that? That performer, right? That band or that singer will be paid some money by that restaurant, whoever is the restaurant manager, whoever is owning the restaurant. So what is happening here? That particular singer or that band performed gig, G-I-G. And for that they were paid. For that, maybe if it was one singer, he was paid, or if you have a band, they were paid for that. So they performed a gig, and for which they were paid. So point to be noted here is, this was paid for the performance of that task. It was not that these people were employed by that restaurant. It's not that they're going to get salaries. They are getting paid for whatever they did. Right? If they're doing it more frequently, let's say on Thursday also they do it, on Saturday they do it, next week also they do it, according to the number of performances and according to the type of performance, they'll be paid for it. So this is what is gig. Right? You carry out a particular task and you're paid for it. So this term gig was first used in this music industry. Right? So different kinds of musical performances. But now it is used for different kinds of other tasks as well. For example, let's say you are a designer and you're employed with a particular organization. And you are a designer and you can make posters, brochures, etc. So there is one organization which is running some marketing campaign, which wants to run a marketing campaign. And they don't have anyone on their payroll permanently. So what they will do, they will try to find people who will basically create brochures, posters, right, for the marketing campaign. And again, once the marketing campaign is over, right, they don't need a designer. So what they will do, they will hire you, you are the designer for that particular gig, for that particular assignment. And once you have delivered, again, you can work with someone. Once you have delivered, there is no such relation that is going to happen between that market organization and you. So you perform the gig and you paid for it. And you're paid for it. So gig refers to this, a job that lasts a specific period of time, and you're paid for that job. You're not in a traditional employee relationship. What happens? I am working with an organization, and every month I'm going to get salary, irrespective of how much I'm performing. Right? Maybe this month was kind of like I was not doing a lot of work, but I'll get the same salary. Next month maybe it's some closing or something. There's some product launches there. Depending on sectors, I have to work more maybe, but I'm getting the same salary. And maybe periodically, yearly, some reviews there. That's a different thing. And I'll get high, but again, that salary will remain the same for the next 12 months. And I have to work for that employer. I'm not supposed to work for other employers, right? But the gig workers, right? They can take multiple assignments at the same point of time. That person who's singing in a restaurant can sing in that restaurant on Tuesday, in another restaurant on Wednesday morning in another restaurant, Wednesday evening in another restaurant. The designer can also take up multiple gigs, right? So this is the meaning of a gig. And those who perform gigs, they are the gig workers. A very easy to understand example I can give you. So let's say you are hungry now, right? So or maybe you can't do much about it. I'm assuming because you're listening to the lecture and you don't eat, so you're not start eating food now. Let's say it's 10:30, right? We're almost at the end of our discussion. And at this point of time, you're extremely hungry. And maybe you haven't prepared the food, you don't have anything to eat at your home, and maybe you don't stay with your parents who have possibly managed your food, and you don't have a very loving, caring family at home who will have prepared for it. So what will you do? You will order food from Zomato or Swiggy. Now, just think about those delivery guys, the Zomato delivery guy or the Swiggy delivery guy. Who are they? Let's say you're ordering food from Zomato, right? That Zomato delivery guy who's coming and going to deliver that food, that person is not a regular employee of Zomato. He's not. He is going to get paid, he or she, right, is going to get paid for that delivery. Right? How much distance he or she has to travel and all those things. That will decide his incentives. And he might decide to work for the entire night, he might decide to work tomorrow, he might decide not to work tomorrow. If tomorrow he might work for Swiggy, or maybe he's doing something else. So depending on the number of deliveries that the person is doing, depending on the distance of the delivery and bunch of other factors, he's going to pay for it. And he's not an employee of Zomato. So they're all example of gig workers. And Uber driver and Ola driver, they're all gig workers. Nowadays you have so many of these hyper local delivery startups, right? Zepto, Blinkit, all these delivery guys, they're all gig workers, right? Urban companies, right? So they have you have carpenters, plumbers, electricians, hairdressers, they're all gig workers. So this is what a gig implies, right? You get paid for that particular task, and you're getting, I mean, that job that you're doing, it lasts for a very specific period of time. Now, what is gig economy? Then again, easy to understand, an economy which involves gig workers. But yeah, if you look at the formal definition, is a free market system in which temporary positions are common, and organizations hire independent workers for short-term commitments. Right? A lot of these temporary positions are there. Look at other companies' website, for example. Right? Look at the number of offerings they have, right? Different kinds of services, and who are going to fulfill the services? Some workers will do it on a temporary basis, right? They're all temporary positions, and they will do it on a short-term commitment basis. Now, who are the gig workers? I have already explained this. Those who participate in income earning activities outside the traditional long-term employee-employee relationship. Right? So they're not, I mean, in a regular employee-employee relationship, generally people will be having some form of long-term commitment over there. Right? They're not supposed to work outside. They'll get some monthly salaries or fortnightly salaries, whatever, and they will be they're not necessarily paid for specific number of tasks. Right? They're just paid like that. Right? They're supposed to carry out multiple things as part of the job requirements, and they'll do it and they'll be paid for it. In a gig economy, that is not the case. This is the Cambridge Dictionary definition of gig workers. A way of working that is based on people having temporary jobs or doing separate pieces of work, each paid separately rather than working for an employer. So this is what gig. This is the meaning of a gig worker. Now, on the screen, you can see multiple examples: Ola drivers, Uber drivers, the delivery guys, etc. Freelancers, they're also gig workers. Right? There are a lot of freelancers. They can be independent contractors, many architects, designers. Right? They're all gig workers. Now, the question is, why is gig economy in the news? Multiple reasons. Right? One is the number of people who are engaged as gig workers. It has increased drastically. Look at the number of platforms that have come up. Right? So, for example, Uber, Ola, Zomato. So they're all different platforms. Right? They're the ones who are providing these kind of opportunities. Right? So the number of opportunities have come up. The number of people who are participating in the gig economy has gone up. The workforce has become more mobile. Previously, the workforce was not mobile. I mean, you are traditionally linked with certain employers, right? But now the number of employment, or not the number of organizations which are these platform economy-based organizations, it has gone up. So the workforce is changing. On top of that, now work can be carried out remotely. So digitalization has happened, internet connectivity, all these things has increased drastically, penetration of all these, especially nowadays. So all these things have given a boost to the gig economy. And multiple reports, projections are there that gig economy is here to stay. Number of gig workers is going to increase. Number of players in the gig economy is going to increase. Let me come to that. You might also be wondering about another term, platform economy. So gig economy and platform economy, what is the difference? Right? So I use two terms, right? The gig economy and platform economy. So gig economy means this, that there are people who are taking up different gigs, and there are people who are not hiring permanent employees. Instead, they will be having temporary positions, and they are filled by people who are the gig workers. Platform economy means the economy of the platforms, the kind of opportunities that platforms provide. Platforms are again digital. All these Zomato or Uber, they're all online platforms, right? What they're doing, they're basically connecting consumers with producers. What does Zomato do? There is someone who's a producer, a restaurant, and then there are consumers, people like you and me who are hungry right now. So Zomato is a platform which is connecting the producers with consumers, and in this platform you have so many of these producers, you're having so many of these consumers who are listed. Similarly, Uber, they're also platforms. So platform economy is creating these jobs. But there's a difference between gig economy and platform economy, right? Platform economy will create all these gig economy jobs. But gig economy need not necessarily be platform economy. Sometimes you have these gig economy jobs which is outside platform economy. The example that I give you, a restaurant, right, which has some musical performance every Tuesday or Thursday, and it is hiring some music band, right, every Tuesday, Thursday or Saturdays. They're not a platform, but they are not having a permanent singer over there. They're not having a permanent band over there who's employed for them. They are giving gigs. They're basically taking people on a temporary basis, and then they're paying them for that. So gig economy is this. It can be online, it can be offline. Platform economy is something which is online, right? So this is the difference between gig economy and platform economy. Now, what are some of the estimates about gig economy in India? Like how large is gig economy? So there was one report which came out in the last 1-2 years. There is a report by Boston Consultancy Group and Michael and Susan Foundation. So they have projected the impact of gig economy in India, or they have projected what is going to be the size of the gig economy in India. So they're saying that at present you have around 80 lakh gig economy jobs, but by 2030 it will be 90 million. So 9 crore jobs will be jobs in the gig economy sector as per this report. But keep in mind that whenever you have these projections, take it with a pinch of salt, right? Did not necessarily 9 crores, but it shows that the number of jobs is going to increase. Apart from that, they say that more than 50% of the gig jobs are driven by demand for low wage, low skilled work. Right? More than 50% of the jobs are low wage, low skilled. Someone basically delivering food, right, or someone delivering a cooler. Right? They're not very. It does not require a lot of skills, and again, the wages will not be very high. Only around 30% of the jobs require some form of specialized skills. So some jobs will exist in the gig economy which are related to specialized skills, right? There can be an architect, right, who is working as a gig worker, freelancer. There might be teachers, there might be content producers, there might be designers, right? So they are all these things require specialized skills. But the number of people with specialized skills in the gig economy will be somewhere around 30%. Mostly at this point of time, it is around. It is for the gig economy is constituted of people who will be working for low wages and who have low level of skills. So this is what the BCG report talks about. There are some other data, right? So in 2019-20, some 68 lakh gig workers were there in India. Right? This is also a decent number. 2021, there were around 77 lakh gig economy workers, right? So again, large contribution is coming from the gig economy, right? It is creating a decent number of jobs. Now, this is from the same report, the BCG report, the estimates that they have made, right? They have made the projections. So in the next 1 decade, right, by 2030, what are their projections? So they're saying that around 2.35 crore jobs will be created in the gig economy, and most of the jobs will be created in personal services. Some jobs in construction, real estate, some in transportation, logistics. Right? Most of the jobs will be in personal services. Right? So, for example, salon services, all those things. Right? So there you will find most of the jobs. So this is what is the estimate. Now, what are some of the advantages provided by the gig economy? Right? Why am I discussing this? Because it has some advantages. We'll come to the issues, but let's look at some of the positives of the gig economy. First, it is creating new markets and employment opportunities. Right? So Ola, Uber, right? So they have created a new market, or this hyperlocal delivery. Right? So again, a new market is created. The market did not exist for that. So new markets have been created. Demand is being created for these kind of services, and as demand is being created for these services, right, it also leads to different kinds of employment opportunities. People are getting benefited by this. Right? People are getting jobs. If you are availing food delivery and other services, then someone who's providing all the services is getting benefited. If you are availing foot massage using urban company, right, so you are giving employment to someone. So new market has been created here. Apart from that, it is basically easing the lives of millions of consumers. It is providing on-demand access to goods and services, and it is trying to formalize the informal sector. Many of these people who are providing services would have been in the informal sector, but now again gradually becoming formalized. It is increasing female labor force participation. Many of these gig economy workers, or many of the workers in the gig economy are females. Right, salon services and all these things are being provided by females. Some females are also taking up jobs which are traditionally considered to be in the domain of male members. Right, so women are doing that. Cab drivers, for example. Some females have started driving for Ola, Uber, and all these apps. It leads to increase in productivity. Right? Some of these platforms, what they do, they also provide training to the workers. Right? As a result of which their skills improve. As a result of which their productivity also increases. They help in price transparency. Just think about it. If I have to take an auto to somewhere, now first thing is I have to think about where can I get the auto. Then I have to go to that place to get an auto. Right? Maybe it's not immediately available. Then I have to haggle for the price. And even if I have decided that, okay, even if I and auto driver decide that, okay, for this place, he will charge me 100 rupees. But when you are taking that route, you will say, okay, the traffic is so much, it took me more time, I have to take a diversion, and finally at the end I might have to pay 200 rupees or 150 rupees, whatever it is, right? I can't save that. But the platforms, right, they ensure price transparency, right? Whatever is there, and you will get a breakup of everything. There are certain rules, regulations, and also the basis of the you can track work quality, and you can review and all those things are there which can help improve organizations. You can also give tips to people. You can basically people can be motivated. Apart from that, there is increase in efficiency. Supply demand is highly dynamic in nature. Right? So if there is a demand for certain kinds of services, increasing demand for certain kinds of services, all these demands are met because again the way incentives are aligned. I'll give you an example. Let's say all of a sudden, right, there's in a particular area people want to now avail a cab service. Right? For example, let's say in many places in India, especially urban areas, you will have certain kinds of night curfew. Not curfew, it's not in the way of section 144. Usually till 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, restaurants can be open. After that, they can't. There will be some restrictions by the law enforcement machinery. So usually what will happen if let's say the closing time is 12. So some of these places which have high concentration of restaurants, pubs, etc. So all of a sudden, everyone will start coming out of these pubs, restaurants, and other places, and they will all start looking for cabs. Now, in the past, what will happen? All of a sudden, there's an increase in demand. You will not get cabs, but because of the dynamic nature of platforms, right, services will be provided. Maybe at a higher price, like service pricing and all those things will be there, but you will get some cabs or some facilities here. And also, some people, like students and all, they have an avenue to work, right, which might not have been there before. So these are all the different kinds of advantages of the economy. Now, look at it from the perspective of the gig economy worker. Right? Is the worker benefiting, or is he at a receiving end? So here there is a trade-off. On one side, the gig economy worker is having some form of liberty. What is liberty? The worker decides how much he wants to work. The worker decides whether he wants to work more or not. He's not bound by any of those processes. Today he might want to work more. He might take up more activities, he might take up more gigs, and he'll be paid more. Tomorrow he doesn't want to work. He wants to do something else. He can do that. So when it comes to gig economy, there is this liberty, there is this flexibility. You decide how much amount of work you want to do. If you have something else to do, you can do that. So the worker might prioritize something else over the gig. So that option is there. But there are other perspectives as well. Some researchers, they will say that yes, the workers have more flexibility, or at least on papers they have more flexibility. But the contract between the workers and the organization is not symmetrical. In this kind of a model, workers' rights, workers' bargaining power is not equal. How? Why? Think of a traditional organization. You have employees, and these employees, all of them, possibly they know each other. Right? Let's say a factory. Right? In a factory, you know who all are the employees. The employees might have some form of association, they might have some form of union, and they know each other. There's this connect with them. So they have a high bargaining power. They can demand for different kinds of rights. If the working conditions is detrimental to their health, they might demand for that. If the of wages that they're getting is not as per the performance of the organization. The organization is making profit, but they're not getting the wages. They might protest against it. They might demand bonus and other things, higher agreements. But all these things are not possible. And think about it, the incentives that the workers get in gig economy. Algorithm plays a very significant role here. What are the parameters that the algorithm is taking into consideration? The gig workers don't know about it. It is mostly confidential in nature. So the relationship that exists is not symmetrical. Workers do not have enough bargaining power. In gig economy, the Zomato whoever is delivering for Zomato, right? They might deliver today, they might deliver tomorrow. Next day they might work for Swiggy. So that form of unionization or formation of these associations might not exist, and as a result of which the bargaining power is less. Apart from that, the kind of economy that is there, right? On demand, different kinds of services have to be provided. So it can lead to excessive amount of pressure on some of these workers. It can impact their health. Workplace might not be safe. There might be heavy penalties if they're not taking the orders in some cases. Right? The incentives are designed in such a manner, right? 12 deliveries you do, you get something. 11th one if you're not able to do, again, there will be some form of penal provision. So rewards penalties again might not be very, very transparent. So indirectly what is happening? Even though you're saying that all these things are flexible, right? It is giving more flexibility, but there is some amount of coercion. Undue coercion might be there. So these are the different kinds of trade-offs that are there, right? Flexibility might be there, but there might be coercion. Now the question is, in the last 1 year or so, there have been different kinds of protests. There have been different kinds of demands. For example, some females who used to work for the platform, right? So they have been demanding better. They have been demanding better work conditions, better increments. When it comes to drivers with Ola, Uber, similar kind of things we have seen, right? Those who have been delivering for Zomato, they have also made different demands, right? So questions have been raised about the incentive structures. Questions have been raised about the harsh working conditions. Questions have also been asked about again, lack of transparency. So it is worthwhile to discuss what sort of reform should be there in the social security apparatus. So keep in mind that if you are a traditional employee, you might be eligible for different kinds of benefits. But when you are a gig employee, gig worker, you're not eligible for all these benefits, gratuity and all these things, maternity and all these things are not there. So what sort of social security should be there, or is there for gig economy workers, and what can be done about it? That's the whole point. But to understand that, first look at what kind of social security exists for labor in India. Do we have any social security for labor in India, or how is the situation when it comes to social security for labor in India? So let's look at some studies here. So there have been multiple studies which find out that labor enforcement machinery in India has weakened, especially in the post-globalization period. You have multiple labor laws, and these laws are extremely restrictive. And again, you need to have machinery which implements this, right? Labor inspectors and all these people. But this enforcement has been weakened, especially after globalization, right? 1991 period. The focus will be on attracting more investments, and if you keep these strict legal, strict laws, it will be difficult for organizations might not come and set up their business. Private investment will get impacted. Foreign investment will get impacted. So labor enforcement machinery has weakened over a period of time. Also, David Will says that capital and labor restructuring in the firm has resulted in fragile workplace. So basically, what is happening is firms are now finding out different ways by which they can shed in-house workers. That means those who are on the payroll, right, permanent employees, they try to find out ways by which they can remove them and have less number of permanent employees and have more number of contractual employees, or maybe more number of gig workers. Now, what could be the reason why you are having this fragile workplace where you are shedding your permanent workers? Think about it. In case of India, the labor laws tend to be extremely restrictive, right? So if you are having 20 employees, right, or less than 20 employees, you don't have to follow the number of laws that are applicable to you less. If you are having more than 20 employees, then the number of laws will increase, which you have to add up. If the number of employees is more than 100, it will increase further. If it's more than 300, it will increase further. So those organizations which have large number of employees, permanent employees on the payroll, they have to adhere so many of these rules and regulations, and it becomes very difficult for them to focus on the business. If you have heard of Factories Act, right, there's one law, Factories Act. Factories Act has like 700 different ways by which an entrepreneur can be put in a jail. Right? So many of these offences can happen if you're violating. So just think about it. Entrepreneurs, they have to spend a huge amount of time in ensuring that you are complying with these things. When will they do business? Many of these things do not need to have jail time as the punishment. So many organizations, they will try to have less number of employees and they will shed employees. They will rather have contractual employees. Apart from that, labor laws in India have predominantly aimed at protecting the rights of organized workers and not the unorganized workers. Focus is on organized workers and not on unorganized workers. What are the unintegrated consequences of this? Most of the firms will try to remain unorganized, right? They will remain outside the purview of the government, right? So hardly some 7 to 10% of the firms, 7 to 10% of the workers are in organized sector, remaining all are in unorganized sector. Apart from that, there was this subcommittee on National Commission for Enterprises in unorganized sector. They find out that 50% of India's GDP is contributed by unorganized workers, but there's not enough safeguards for them. And even within organized sectors, there has been different ways by which employers try to ensure that they come under as less purview of the government as possible. Right? So they will go for casualization of labor. So the point that I want to mention here is, the point I want to so basically this all summarizes that in case of India, the social security architecture that is there is not good enough. Right? Mostly it has been focusing on organized sector, but there also the number of workers in organized sector is quite low, and also there are different kinds of loopholes here. And anyway, the enforcement machinery has become very rough. Right? So if you are thinking about social security of gig economy workers, right, it's almost non-existent. Right? There's not much protection. So in recent times, what has happened is we have, or the government has come up with different labor codes. They're all trying to provide better working conditions for the laborers. So there are 4 labor codes. One has been notified at the beginning, are work in progress. So there are labor codes related to wages, labor codes related to industrial relations, labor codes related to occupational safety, health, and other things. And then there is also code related to social security. So since this has been in the news, there have also been commentators who are saying that there is a scope to improve the position of gig economy workers. And one of the labor code actually talks about gig economy workers. Right? So you have 4 codes, but these 3 codes are not talking about gig economy workers. The code on social security, it talks about gig economy workers, and it defines a gig economy worker as a person who participates in work arrangement and earns from such activities outside a traditional employment relationship. So the code on social security defines who is a gig economy worker. But as you can see here, this definition is not very particular. Right? It's not very crisp. It says anyone who is outside the traditional employment relationship. So it is very broad. It is very vague. But one thing to note here is it mentions that a gig economy worker is outside the employment relationship, which implies a gig economy worker will not be considered as an employee. So if there are different kinds of provisions which the employer has to initiate for employees, it will not be applicable to the gig economy workers because gig economy worker is not considered as an employee. That you have to keep in mind. Now, why is this something which is important? Moreover, in different cases, there is this debate going on whether gig economy workers should be considered as an employee or not. If they're considered as employee, whatever benefits are given to the employees will be passed on to the gig economy workers, which in turn might impact two things. The organization, right, who is employing the gig economy workers, their costs will increase, right? Because at this point of time, they don't have permanent people, right, on the payroll, but now they have to think about the social security, they have to pay more, which in turn will impact the growth prospects of these organizations. Also, what happens, depending on the dynamic supply and demand, the organizations will have more gig economy rules or they will reduce the gig economy rules. But if you have people who are being considered as employees, you have to provide them for social security for them. This dynamic nature will get impacted. The entire way by which the gig economy operates, that will get impacted. And some of the gig economy workers, they also might not want to be classified as employees, because if they're classified as employees, the flexibility that they get, that will also be hindered. Right? So this particular, whatever law that we have right now, it is not really clear about what is going to be gig workers' position in these codes, how gig economy workers will be treated. But what is clear is they will not be treated as employees. Right? And if gig economy workers would have been treated as employees, again, multiple things would have changed. Right? And in fact, some gig economy workers might not even want to be treated as full-time employees because it will reduce their flexibility. So now we know who are the gig economy workers. who are gig workers, what is gig economy, what is platform economy. We know how gig economy is going to play a significant role in the future. We know what are some of the advantages, we know some of the challenges. One more thing I want to point out here. See, when people are working in the gig economy, they usually face two kinds of problems. One is stability, right? Maybe today they have, maybe today they have work, tomorrow they don't have work. That is one challenge. Also, the amount of money that they're making, right? So some of them will be at a low wage, some of them will be at a high wage. So those who are having less wages, they're also facing that issue. So one is stability. Today you have work, tomorrow you don't have. Second thing is you might be earning low wages, right? So what all needs to be done, or what can be the way ahead? Some suggestions are on the screen. First is, at the present, you do not have any way by which whatever issues that gig economy workers face, right? Maybe occupational safety, health issues, etc. So those things cannot be discussed. There's no dispute resolution mechanism. And given that so many people will be part of the gig economy, it makes sense to have some form of dispute resolution mechanism. Apart from that, the recent labor code, right, code on social security, talks about setting up a national social security board, but no timeline has been mentioned. If you're having a timeline, then it will be more actionable, it will be more practical. Apart from that, this board will have representation from gig economy workers, but how do you ensure that it's transparent? All these things have to be ensured. Apart from that, the code of industrial relations, it does not talk about gig economy or gig workers. Maybe it can define the nature of contracts between gig workers and the platform. Maybe we can give some model contracts, right? So again, the information asymmetry and all those things that exist can be taken care of. Gig workers would have been covered in the occupational safety, health, working condition code. Because many of them will face different kinds of occupational hazard, right? Maybe in some cases they will have these strict timelines. You have to deal with it 20 minutes, 7 minutes. In some cases they have to carry heavy load, which might be impacting their health. So some basic norms can be there, so that their health and safety is taken care of. Right? So that can be there in this code. So this is about gig economy, its significance, how there are different kind of trade-offs here, and what can be done about it. Right? So there is one question that you can see on the screen. Analyze the difficulty in defining gig workers from a legislative point of view. Examine the salient features related to gig workers in the new labor code bills recently tabled in the parliament.